Hi everyone, this is Nick, and we're going to go over some of the techniques for Photoshop. I have two images here, image 1 and image 2, and both of those are going to be available on my Google Drive account here. I've got a shareable link, I'll put that in the description. The things we're going to go over are how to duplicate a layer, how to work with the brightness and contrast, how to work with the levels and the exposure on the image, how to make a layer via a copy of something on the image, how to do a quick selection, flipping the canvas, adding text to the image, adding a border on top of those layers, how to make a black and white photo in one step, and then how to work with black and white images using some of these steps above. So while you can do a black and white image in one step, sometimes you don't always get the detail if you don't make any of these other changes up here. So we're going to talk about that. First thing we're going to do is I'm going to open Photoshop. So let me go ahead and bring that up. And I'm using Photoshop Creative Cloud for anyone who is wondering what version of Photoshop I have. Okay, Photoshop is up, so I'm going to go ahead and choose Open so that I can open up one of my images. I'm already selected on the desktop, so I'm going to click on image 1. These photos were taken with my DJI Phantom 4. This particular image was taken about 250 feet up and out towards a setting sun in the sky. Now, I like this photo, but it is taken at nighttime. I'd really like this photo to be taken almost during the daytime, so something that we're going to do is we're going to talk about duplicating layers. And that's going to be very important for this. Once we get into some of these later items, you'll see what I'm talking about then. So the first things first is I want to be able to have a separate layer for the background and a separate layer for the ground level area. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just duplicate this so I've got a working copy of my background. And it's going to pop up and say, yes, I want to duplicate the layer. That's the name it's going to be. We'll go ahead and click OK. Now, I want to make a second copy of that now as well. We'll get into that here in a minute. So here's my second copy, another background layer. Let's go ahead and go to the first, and I'm going to hide using the little icon here, the other two layers right now. So the only layer that's visible is that first copy that I made. Now, what we want to do is we want to work with the exposure as well as the brightness and the contrast. So first things first, we're going to go up here to the image menu. And we're going to go down to brightness and contrast. Okay, now with the brightness and contrast up, we can go ahead and adjust the brightness and contrast on this, and you'll see what happens when I do. When I move the slider over for the brightness, you'll see that I'm now getting a lot of detail at the ground level that we weren't seeing before. There's houses available, there's businesses and things that you can see over here, some condos and such over here. A lot different than if I left that at 0, for instance. Now, the contrast is the same way, so let's say I go down this way. Now you can start to see a little bit more detail come out the farther down that I go, but it's kind of changing some of the contrast up here, and I may not necessarily want to do that. If I go all the way this way, then I lose pretty much all of that detail down below and just focus on the sky. So this lightens up the light details and darkens the darker details, and then the opposite way has the opposite effect. So what I want to do is I want to get this particular area as light as possible down here so that I can see the most detail. And I'm not going to be worried about the sky just yet. So we're going to go ahead and leave that where it is and click OK. Okay, next we're going to go up to the image menu again, and this time we're going to go to Adjustments and Levels. Now, levels are very important because these are your high tones, your mid-tones, and your lows. And moving these sliders has different effects on that. So if we move the lows, you'll notice the image gets very dark. And put that back. If you move the mids down this way, you'll notice it definitely lightens up quite a bit. Now usually the midtones are what we're going to want to work with, and in this case I want to have them roughly about there because if I have it down there it gives too much kind of a gray effect on the photo, whereas if I move it a little bit closer here, I can still see some of that green, but I'm not losing much detail. And for this particular photo, I'm probably not going to work with the brights, only because if we work with that, it's really going to wash the sky out. So I'm actually going to leave that the way it is. We'll click OK and we're done with that. Now, we'll notice that if I hide that, but I go ahead and put the other backup copy that I made on there, big change from what it was, and definitely a change from the background, the original background. So the next thing that I want to go over is how to do a layer via a copy. Now, what I want to do, or not a layer via a copy, I'm sorry, how to do a quick selection. So the one thing that's important in what I'm trying to do here is I want to be able to get the sky so it almost looks like daytime, and have this to where this looks just like it is. Now what I want to do is I want to use the quick select tool over here. So my mouse cursor is on it now. You'll see it come up, it'll say quick selection tool. So we'll go ahead and click on that. I'm going to go down here once I select the appropriate layer, and I'm going to start dragging. And you'll notice that as I start dragging over objects, it's picking up individual areas because it can tell between different shapes and things like that on the image. So we're going to go all the way across, and you'll notice it literally selected all of the ground level area that it can see out to the horizon. So that's going to be important. We're going to leave that. So now that that's selected, what I want to do is I want to make a copy of this and turn it into its own layer. So we're going to go ahead and right click, and we're going to go down here and choose layer via copy. So now I have just a layer. If we turn off the rest of these so that they're hidden, now we have just a layer of the ground level. The next thing that I want to do is I want to turn that layer off, because what I want to see is I want to go to this other background copy. Again, I'm not working with my original layer here, I'm working with just the copies that I made. This way any changes won't get saved to that original, and I have something to go back on if I make mistakes. So I'm going to go ahead and select this background copy layer 2. What we're going to do is we're going to basically do the same thing that we did with the background copy 1. We're going to go up and we're going to work with the brightness and the contrast settings. We're also going to work with the levels and the exposures. And the reason why I want to do that is because now I'm not concerned about the ground level, but what I am concerned about is the sky level. I want to make sure that the sky is a nice blue over here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to select that with a brush, make a copy, and then we're going to change the color of the sky with it. You'll see what I'm talking about here. So let me go back to my mouse. And what we're going to do is we're going to go up to Image, Adjustments. We're going to go to Brightness and Contrast now. Now I'm concerned about the brightness and the contrast for the sky level. So what I want to do is I want to brighten it up enough that I get a real nice blue over on the side there, kind of like this. Maybe take that contrast down just a little bit. And then we'll click OK. So now that we saved it, what I can do is I can use my eyedropper tool. And the eyedropper tool is important because what you can do is it lets you select a color right in that area. So you'll notice that's my current selection. As I go down, if I'm selecting this area, you'll see it gives me that kind of lighter yellow or orange color. I'll go up here and I'll select a white. What we want is we want this nice blue over here. And that's what we're going to use to paint with. So now that we've got that, that's selected, we can let that go for a moment. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my quick selection tool again, and this time I'm going to select the sky. So what I want to do is I want to go basically up and over, and I'm going to select just the sky area including the clouds. Okay, so now that I've got that, I can again right click, and this time we're going to go down, layer via copy, and now we have another layer. Now you'll notice that this layer appeared down here. It's important to make sure that these layers are properly in order. Now in this case, since I want the sky on top, I'm just going to click and drag this up above this layer right here, which was the ground. So you'll notice when I do this, now if I click this off and I click this on, my image should just about match up. We're not worried about that line right at the moment because we can take care of that in a little bit. That's not a big deal. Can even probably clean that up if I go rotate it like that, just a little bit. Not a big deal. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and turn that ground layer off. And now what we want to do is we're going to go ahead and get our brush. And so we've got our brush tool, and we want to make sure that this is going to go fairly quickly. So we're going to choose a hard round brush, and then I'm going to set my brush size up to not that high. I'm probably going to go maybe about 250. Yeah, that's pretty good. So this little slider here adjusts the size in pixels of your brush head. So you can go all the way up. I mean, 5,000 pixels is the max for the brush head. That's bigger than my canvas, as you can see. I don't need something that big, so I'm going to go down 300. We'll leave it at 300 right now. And you'll notice that's the size of my brush head now. Now what I want to do is, I want to go over here, and you'll notice this label that says normal here. Again, we're selected on the layer that is the sky. We're going to click on that, and we're going to go down here to color. We want to choose that because we're going to change the color on this. Now remember, before we used the eyedropper tool, this guy right here, to select a blue over here. That's what my color currently is for my brush head. So now all I have to do is start painting with this. And we want to cover the whole thing. And try not to go too far below the line. I usually do the outside first, and then from there I'll do the inside. Okay, now we can just sweep back and forth across. We'll make sure we cover the whole thing. Okay. Now that that's done, everybody's probably wondering, well, that layer is really dark. You have to go back over it again. This time, what it's doing is it's repainting the layer with that color of brush that you had from before. This last little bit here. Okay, so there's my layer. Now if I go ahead and turn on my lower layer for, not that one, turn on my lower layer, now we can see that I changed the color of the sky. Now this part in here can be adjusted, you know, again via your contrasting and everything, and that's probably what I would end up doing now, is adjusting it with your contrast. So what I'll do is I'll select my lower portion, this down here, and go up to image, adjustments, and we'll probably just do the brightness and the contrast again on that. What we can do is we can kind of darken that up just a little bit. But change the contrast so that it makes it a little bit brighter. Alright. Not perfect, but definitely a step in the right direction. You can easily use some blending tools later on, but that's a little bit beyond the scope of this video right now. Okay, the last couple of things that we're going to do regarding this video are, number one, we're going to talk about flipping the canvas, and we're going to talk about adding text and adding a border on top of layers. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to add text and the border first, and then I will flip the canvas. So what we're going to do is, actually no, let me flip the canvas first, because otherwise it won't work if I flip that. So what we want to do is, when I say flip the canvas, I mean, let's say I want it looking, you know, this is looking kind of that way. Let's say I want it looking the opposite way. I can go up to the image, and I can go down here to image rotation, and then I can say flip canvas on the horizontal axis. And now we actually flipped the canvas around, so it's looking at it kind of from that perspective, like I'm coming down the street instead of going up it. Kind of a nice little feature to be able to do. Some photos, it makes it real nice to be able to have that. Okay, so let's add some text to this. And we'll use our text tool over here. It's just got the little T. Most image programs have that ability. And so we're just going to go in. Okay, so we've got our text. Now we can manipulate this in a couple of different ways. We can go up here to the top, and so it's center aligned. If I want it right, left justified, I can do that. I can right justify it. We'll just go ahead and center it for now. I can change the size using this right here. You've got some pixel choices, or you can type in your choice, whatever you want. Different fonts, so whatever fonts you have installed on your system will work in Photoshop. The other thing is you can adjust your color. So right here, it's set just about to the background color of the sky. I don't really want that. I want it set more to that kind of green. That way you can really see it. We'll make it maybe a bright green. Okay, so I got that. Now, what I can do is I can take my move tool and, I'll take my text tool and we'll end up moving this guy down maybe a little bit towards the center here. Okay, so there's that. Now the other thing that I can do is I can add a border around this. Now the easiest way to add a border is just to simply draw a rectangle. It usually helps if you know what size the actual image is that you're working with. In my case I do, so what I can do is over here you'll see a bunch of different properties. Now this is width and height in pixel sizes. So I know my image is 4,000 pixels by 3,000 pixels high. And that's because my DJI's camera is a 12 megapixel camera. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move this up so that it's right on line. You'll see the guides there. They'll light up. And then the only other thing I want to do is I want to make it to where the fill color on the image is transparent, meaning there's no color. So we'll do that. But I want to add a border. And in this case, I want to add a black border. So we're going to go ahead and choose black border. But you'll notice you can't really see the border. Well, that's because the border is only 1 pixel in width. So to change that, we're going to click on this little box next to it that has the pixel count there. And we're going to move that all the way out. Let's say we want it at, 32 pixels or something like that. That gives me a little bit more of a border. Now if I move it all the way out, 288 pixels, well, that really gives me a border. So that makes it look a lot better when it comes to the image. You can kind of clean up if you've got any artifacts on the outside. Definitely helps to be able to have that. And also too, then you can just take and crop your image down a little bit. Makes it nice for that. The last thing that we're going to do with this is, now that I'm pretty satisfied with what we've got, we're going to go ahead and save this. And I'm going to save it as a JPEG. So what I want to do is I'm just going to go to Save As, and I'm going to save it as a JPEG on the desktop. And we're just going to call this Image 1 Edited. So now we can do that. And it comes up with some settings here. At the moment, don't really need to worry about that too much. I'll go ahead and click OK. And so it saved the file. So now if we minimize and we look at the two photos, I'll just bring this up using Preview really quick to give you an idea of what I've got. That was the unedited version. Yeah, and there was the edited version. A lot different. Okay, the last couple of things that we're going to go through on Photoshop, let me bring Photoshop back up, is we're going to talk about black and white photos. So I'm going to leave this open for now, and I'm going to go ahead and open another photo. So we're going to go to File and Open. And then from here, I'm going to choose Image 2. I'm going to go ahead and click Open. So image 2, this is something that I took looking at the city of Dayton from Riverscape, right there on the Great Miami River. I was about 400 feet in the air at this point in time. So it's a really good photo. I like it quite a bit. It's good size. But some people like to look at cities in like that black and white kind of old time look and feel. It's real easy to do. All you have to do is go up here to image, and you can go to adjustments and black and white, and as soon as you click on black and white, your image immediately comes up. Now that's a pretty good looking photo by itself. I like it, but we want to make some changes to this because I want to be able to see like the individual windows on Kettering Tower here, and I don't want it to be quite as dark. It's just it needs a little bit of cleaning up. That's why when I was talking earlier about using some of these other tools on a black and white photo, this is where this will come in handy to be able to have that. So let's cancel this for now. Okay, first thing we're going to do is make a copy. We always make a copy of the background because I want to have something to revert back to in case there's a problem. So I'm going to click OK, and now I'm working with my background. I'm going to go ahead and hide my original one, and we're going to keep working with the background. The first thing that I want to do is, instead of going directly to black and white, I'm actually going to go and adjust the brightness and the contrast as it exists in color. Why am I doing that? Because any changes that I make in the photo as it exists right now will transfer over when I do the black and white. So I want to make sure that I've got the brightness, the contrast, and the tones set correctly here before I go to black and white and start making adjustments. If we brighten the photo up, we'll notice that I can start to see the windows on Kettering Tower quite a bit better now. Now, the sky's kind of washing out a little bit, but that's okay because, again, the photo's going to be black and white. The main point is I really want to see these windows. The other thing that I want to do is I want to sharpen things up a little bit. So if I start going this way, you'll notice that while the colors are getting deeper, I'm losing those windows. So I don't want to go too much. I want to go just a little bit. So we're going to leave it at about 25 right there. That gives me a little bit more color to work with, a little bit better contrast, and the brightness level is really good right now. So we'll click OK on that. Now I could go up here to image and I could adjust the levels. And adjusting the mids might give me a little bit more, but it's not going to be much. So you don't want to play around with this too terribly much when you're working with black and white. I'm going to take it down just maybe to about there, and that's going to be it. So we'll click OK on that and not mess with any of the other stuff. Okay, now let's go up to the image button again. We'll go to adjustments, and we're going to go to black and white. As soon as we go to black and white, you'll notice immediately I can start to see the windows better. Now the one thing that I like to do on this is I do like to increase the red. So if I increase the red up to 100%, that's going to bring a lot more of this color in over here, which is a little bit better. You can see it, less shadowy. And then we'll do the same thing on the yellow. We'll take that to 100% as well. The last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to change the tint. And the reason why I'm going to change the tint is because I want to kind of get, again, a little bit more of the contrast on the buildings in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the hue here and I'm going to move it over to the blue spectrum. Now that's going to turn everything kind of that pale blue. We can set it maybe about there. But what I'll do is I'll take the saturation down, and that's going to take that blue out of the image. But what it'll do is it'll give enough of a hue that it's kind of like reflecting off of the items that are in the picture and make it to where it looks a lot cleaner that way, so that you can see some of that detail work. So we'll leave it about 10% and click OK. And now we have our black and white photo. We can see the windows really nice and clean on that. We can see all the glasswork here. Same thing over here. I can see a lot of the detail and stuff over here, make out some of the cars and details on that. And the sky still looks really nice and clean, even though that we converted it to black and white and kind of washed it out in the color format. Alright, so let's go ahead and save that, because we definitely like the picture that we've got here. So we'll choose File, Save As. And again, I'm going to save this as a JPEG. And we're going to call this Image 2, Image 4, Edited, just like we did before. And click Save. And on the next menu, we're just going to go ahead and click OK. Again, we're not really worried about those settings right now. I'll minimize this, and what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and open up the original so that you can see it. So there's the original, here's the copy, black and white. Again, you can see more detail on Kettering Tower, you can see more detail down here, not as much on the shadowy effect, looks really good. Alright, last thing that I'm going to do is for both photos, because I want to make sure that I save all my edits and everything, is I am going to go ahead and choose Save As. And I'm going to save it as a Photoshop file, so that's a .psd file. We'll save that to the desktop. And then we want to make sure we save all the layers, because that will save our changes that we made to it, including creating the background layer and creating all the other layers on the other photo. So we'll click Save. And on this, we're just going to go ahead and click OK, because we're not concerned about the compatibility issue right now. Alright, so now we can close out of that photo. And then the final photo, we're going to go ahead and click Save on our original. And we'll save that as image1.psd as well to the desktop. Click OK on the compatibility issue. And that's it. Last thing we'll do, we'll close out of that image. And it just says it'll be saved after, closed after saving is complete, which it's done, and we're all finished up. Alright guys, well, I've got two photos there, image 1 and image 2. I'm going to go ahead and put the link in for the Google Drive account so that you can access those two photos, and I wish everyone the best of luck doing the edits on it. Thanks very much. Bye.